Hello and welcome back to Teach Talk with the Fine Arts. My name is Sarah and I'm your host today. I have Mr. Frank Pugh, who's the band director at Fort Chiswell High School and Middle School. We talk about networking and dealing with the digital space that teachers are dealing with now, which I've recently started dealing with as well. So it's kind of neat to actually talk to someone. It was neat to talk to someone now that I can relate and understand what the teachers are dealing with. So that's kind of, I go off on a couple tangents, so I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I still think you're going to enjoy this episode a lot. Thank you, Frank, for being on, and I hope you all enjoy the episode. You want to introduce yourself?
Well, sure. I'm Frank Pugh. I'm the band director at Fort Chiswell High School and Middle School. And I direct the community band for Wytheville Community College and a couple other things here and there.
What about your levels of education?
Well, I went to Elon University. It was Elon College at the time, and I've got a double major. I have a BS in music education, grades K through 12, choir, orchestra, band, and I've got a BA in music performance with an emphasis on bass trombone. It was cool.
Kudos to you.
That's it. Didn't go on for a master's. Started to and decided that was not the route I wanted to take.
I'm there myself. I'm trying to decide if I want to go back.
It's I was at that point when I had to getting ready to graduate college. I had to decide, do I want to go on and get the master's or go ahead and start applying for jobs? And I just decided I was so done with school. Yeah. I was looking at a master's degree because so many guys around me were doing that, and I realized my heart was not in it. It was going to be a mistake.
I think that's the main reason I wanted to go back to school. But, I kind of think I need to get something. But I think the main reason was because, you need to get a master's because that's what people do. And, yeah. So
that's the way I thought about it.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
Yeah, no. Not at all. Nothing wrong with a master's at all. I think those are great. But you got to make sure you're going for the right reasons.
Yeah, I agree. So would you consider yourself tech savvy?
No. I don't mind the technology thing. But when it comes to online technology, that's where you kind of lose me. I can be taught, but I've never considered myself really comfortable with the online world. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll hold this up to the camera. Here is my cell phone. It's the old, flip style.
Nice.
Yeah. My wife's tried to talk me into getting a smartphone for years, and I just didn't want to do it. And she explained there's so much you can do with it. And I said, that's exactly why I don't want it. I don't want to be able to do everything through my phone. I don't want to be connected all the time. And lo and behold, here we are. Connected all the time now. But yeah, technology is cool with me, but the online technology specifically has never been my strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to learn a whole lot.
I think a lot of people are.
Man, it's been an overwhelming task. It really has. But I'm not so sure it's a bad thing to be back in the role of student. Mm-hmm. It's given me a different perspective for how my own kids are going through the online environment now, and how all the students I teach are probably going to have to interact with the online environment. So, having to learn right along with them, at least we're all kind of going through this together.
I was thinking about that too, because it's in our trainings, they just throw so many platforms and programs at you, that stuff you can use. And the kids are getting that too, because we're not all picking the same platforms.
No.
And it's just, a lot of them don't have the best home life either. So they have to try to figure out how to do school in that environment. And it's just, I don't know.
The variables are endless.
Yeah.
Every kid we teach has their own unique situation. And you just can't account for all of it. Mm-hmm. I think you just have to be aware that every child you teach is coming from a different perspective on the technology, on the home environment, on the background. Just be ready for that diversity of perspectives.
I saw a post about like you need to think of the kid that's like sitting in the Taco Bell parking lot and doesn't want to turn on the camera or doesn't want to unmute their mic because there's people in the
Yeah.
background arguing. Like, and I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, it's that, and I got to say, my school system's done a pretty good job of just trying to drive the point home that you don't know necessarily what you're going to see when the camera comes on,
Yeah.
when the audio's unmuted, and you know, it's hard to prepare for all those kinds of situations. I definitely don't want to put a kid on the spot with something like that.
No.
I've tried to tell. We've had a little bit of face-to-face interaction just with students and parents coming by to pick up Chromebooks or to take care of things they had to do on site at the school. But the school system has kept that to a minimum. But the folks that I've had interactions with, I've tried to tell them, look, I don't want my band classes to be another added source of stress,
Right.
another challenge you have to overcome. Let's keep the environment as simple, as easygoing, as comfortable as possible, and let's make an effort to make the music part of what you're doing in school just as fun as it always is. You know, it is a real class. It does have real academic value to it, but it should also be just inherently enjoyable if you can make it that way. And I think we can.
I think so. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, but I just kind of dealing with it all day, every day. It's just kind of
That's the way it is.
in my head.
I dream about computer screens at night.
Really?
Yeah, I do. It's getting better, but for a while there, you just see them all night long.
So, did you ever teach music online before COVID?
No, not at all. I've had zero online music teaching experience. You know, I can send emails. That's it. I've never done a video and posted it online before all the COVID stuff hit. Never done any kind of online instruction at all. Completely new to this. I have watched a fair amount of YouTube videos when I wanted to find something out for myself. That's as close to any kind of music instruction as I've come to. Just trying to dig up information for myself. That's about it.
Okay. Well, that's nice. Like, I wish I wasn't so like into all this all the time. I bought a paper planner the other day actually just to kind of get away from the screen a little bit.
Yeah. When I was kind of getting ready to meet with you tonight, I started to type up some notes to myself just of stuff I wanted to remember. And I thought, you know, I think I'm actually going to handwrite this.
Yeah.
It felt so weird, but it was so nice.
I know. I was filling out all my appointments for next week, and I was just like, I've missed this.
Yep. Feels good to hold a pen or a pencil.
So what was the process of transitioning to online when COVID first hit?
Oh, man. It came on so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Back in March, I was scheduled to do some weekend stuff in West Virginia with Mercer County, and the day before I went, everything closed. My school system came up with some, initially they just kind of had some drop folders you could put activities in for the kids to do to try to keep them engaged, and then they refined the process a little bit more and got us onto the Google Classroom. But we had zero training. There was just none there. There was no time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of getting the on-the-job training and tips for things we could do. Now, this summer's been way, way different. The school system has really, really gone into the deep end of the swimming pool on trying to prep us. I don't know how many hours, bunches and bunches of hours. I think I spent 3 weeks doing online training for Canvas and for Google Classroom just on our own. And then we came back to school and we were in more training. And then there's the training we sought out on our own. We're looking at Smart Music and Music Professor and a couple other programs, joining online forums on Facebook and other places, just trying to get tips and tricks about how to use the tools of the trade. But training. Every day is training. Every day is training of some kind, whether the school system has it for us or whether we're doing it on our own. We're learning new stuff every single day. And you know, it's kind of cool. I like learning new stuff. It would be nice if we could kind of space it.
Yeah.
But, you know, you do what you got to do.
Are you all in person or blended or?
No, we're completely online.
Okay.
They were going to do a hybrid blended learning thing. And the morning of our first faculty meeting, when teachers came back, the school board opted to go with completely virtual education. I think it was a good decision. From a teacher perspective, I'm getting to focus on a more narrow way of presenting the material to the kids. If we had kids here in the building and kids learning completely virtually, in addition to trying to teach the kids in front of you and teach the kids at home, you've also got all the cleaning procedures, the supervisory procedures, transportation. I'm sure I'd be wearing a hat or two extra beyond what I normally do, and so would every teacher in the building.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of extra required time, extra required effort, and I'm just not completely sure we were going to be able to handle all that situation.
I agree. But we're completely online too, and it just seems easier. And they're going to reevaluate at the end of September, and the blended model is just difficult. It just sounds difficult. I just wish they'd keep it one way or the other.
I may be wrong. We're reevaluating ours at the end of October as to what we'll do then. But I think I would not choose to teach completely online if there were a way to teach in person.
Mm-hmm.
But the blended thing, the more I think it's going to be too much to do well. I don't think we would be able to serve our kids and their parents as well in the blended model. I could be wrong, but I just can't see how that's going to succeed.
I know. I agree. Which, I don't know about you all, but when we're remote, we're doing like odd periods 2 days a week and even period 2 days a week. So they're only getting 2 classes when we're on remote, but they're not in the cleaning process, and, they're just all at home. So
Gotcha.
I guess give and take for both.
I know there are different approaches that you can take to it. And, whatever works for your community and for your area is probably the way to go. I don't think there's a cookie cutter way of doing it. With the full online stuff, I know we're doing Canvas and Google Classroom, and you can kind of do a blend of those approaches, but we've been equipped with so many tools. Trying to figure out which ones are going to be the most effective has been a real challenge for me.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ways to go, but having the time to do any of it very well is a trick, and getting familiar with the technology. I just figured out how to use a document camera and record what I was doing on the camera yesterday.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to do that. So,
but I think I kind of stumbled into it.
mm-hmm.
But it worked. I did a 30-second demo and it worked out okay. So I'm hoping to be able to integrate that. Trying to figure out how to serve kids that don't have good internet access is a challenge. Trying to get concepts across in music is a challenge. I know some programs aren't even trying to teach instrumental music, but we're one of the ones that's going to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we can do it. I don't think it's going to go as fast as it usually does, but I think we can still get it done. At least I'm hopeful.
How are you all doing, like, beginning band? Because I know Tom was talking about how they were having to figure out how to do that, like get kids on instruments.
I am setting aside a lot of the stuff I normally do just to get kids involved.
Mm-hmm.
If I have the very few kids I've met face to face with from a safe distance, I've just told them based on their facial structure, this is what I might recommend that you try. But I told them, look, pick something you think is going to be fun.
Yeah.
We're making some videos available to them with instrument demonstrations on them so the kids can look at some different examples, see what sounds they like, look at the way the instrument's put together, the playing technique on it, and just more or less we're taking an educated guess. But I want the kids involved. If we don't have that perfectly balanced instrumentation, it's okay. I'm really focusing more on the individual child and not so much on the band program as a whole right now.
So when you guys went online, and I guess now as well, what programs did you use? Did you use Zoom or Skype or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or any of those other the millions of video platforms?
Everything was Zoom back when the shutdown happened.
Okay.
Uh, since we came back, they originally told us to use Google Meets. We've been testing Google Meets, found out there's some complications with it depending on the setting you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been told that Zoom fixed some of their security issues. So now we've been told we can use Google Meets or Zoom, whichever seems to fit us best. And they're constantly giving us tip sheets and recommendations on how to make your meetings more secure, how to keep control more of the meetings, do's and don'ts. So I think the process is going to get better the more we use it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're pretty much going to stick with just those two programs. I think I'm going to try to go with the Zoom. I've used it more, so I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with it. And right now I'm looking for comfort and familiarity. The better I feel about it, I'm hoping the better my kids are going to feel about it when we start doing it.
One thing I don't like about Google Meets, unless I'm just missing something, is that the host leaves, the meeting still happens until everybody hangs up. So, like, if the teacher leaves, then they can still sit in there. But on Zoom, if you end the meeting, it's done.
That was one of the big things that came up in our trainings. We'll see how that goes. They just came out with a tip sheet for Google Meets yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't had a chance to go through it to see if they had some ways of mitigating that circumstance, and they may.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming up with new stuff all the time.
Zoom is too. I think they're coming out with like a music mode or something to where
Really?
it'll adapt to instruments better. I think that's what I read on like Facebook in one of those groups.
Well, that's cool. That could be really useful. Man, I tried, a former student of mine contacted me back in April during the shutdown, and she had an idea to do one of these virtual concert videos that we'd seen a lot of. But you want to keep it small, just about 3 or 4 people. So I recorded a couple of tracks and sent them to her, and she ended up using one. But just trying to get the microphone to pick up a decent sound, trying to find a decent recording environment. And of course, not having access to any technology other than what I had at my house at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So no decent microphones, no mixing, nothing like that. Me and iPad sitting in a garage someplace.
That's the next question too, leading into it. Did you buy any like microphones or interfaces, or have you thought about it?
I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I contacted some guys I've dealt with, some vendors I've been in contact with online before about different things, and asked them for some recommendations, told them this is kind of what I think I'm going to be doing with the online teaching right now. We're going to be full virtual. Do you have any recommendations? So right now we're in the process of exchanging emails back and forth so they can figure out how to equip me with the tech that I need the most. I just got into doing a sound mixing board and microphones and things the past few years with my marching band, which has opened up a whole new world of possibilities to us and a whole new world of headaches. And working with these guys on electronic sound has been a real blessing to have some experts guiding you along. But we're looking at getting some new technology to try to make this whole thing work out a little bit better. I wish I knew exactly what we were looking at. I think I have it narrowed down to about 3 different USB mics and 3 different audio interfaces. And I think I'm going to try to get a USB mic and an audio interface. We've got a lot of microphone equipment here already from the stuff that we've been doing through marching band. And we've got a variety of mics, and they're not bad. So if we can integrate that into what I'm doing now, great. But they said the USB mics were a lot more user-friendly, just plug and play and go for it.
Right.
So I'm looking at that too, but I think really our county's blessed us by keeping our budgets intact.
Mm-hmm.
They did not cut the arts program budgets, and I got to tip my hat to them on that, because I think now's the time where we need to invest in some new technology to keep up with the software and hardware that we've been equipped with to do the online teaching. And that's going to take money. And it's time to investigate it, see what works for us, and try to find the best route to go on things. I wish I could speak more to the specifics of it, but boy, this is out of my arena.
I understand.
Now, do you have I noticed that you've been doing the podcast thing for a little while, so I guess you're probably more familiar with the different types of mics and so forth, I guess, than I am, I would say.
Uh, yeah, I was a percussionist, still am, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to get into audio production too, so I have a few things, and then my husband has a recording studio, so I'm pretty
Oh,
set with
wow.
podcast stuff. So
Very nice. Very nice.
I actually did it at my parents' house tonight, so this is
Oh, no kidding.
I dug this stuff out. So
Oh, man, that's great. I'm just sitting here in my office. Got my Spider-Man poster on the wall back there.
I'm impressed that you're still at school. Like I I can't.
My kids are older. I've got a sophomore and a sophomore and a senior now.
Mhm.
And my wife is at home right now. She's able to be there for anything they need, and they're really understanding with the time I spend away from the house. Both my kids are in my own band program too.
Okay.
So I actually, when I'm out on Friday nights at football games and Saturday in the competition venues, they're with me.
Mhm.
So that's been pretty cool. So I'm actually not gone from the family quite as much as it would seem.
Yeah. That's good.
But yep, still at school.
3:30 hits and I'm like, my brain is numb. I can't do anything anymore. Like I can't.
I get that too.
So, what do you think this year looks like as far as teaching goes based on what you see now? Do you think it's going to change or
Anymore I think all bets are off.
yeah.
But I trying to look at the research developments that they're having with the COVID-19 stuff, looking at the way society seems to be adjusting or not adjusting. I kind of think we're going to be online completely for at least a semester. I think when it comes time to reevaluate things in October, I suspect we're going to stay online, but that's just me guessing. I don't know that we'll be online all year. We may. I think when we return, they'll try the hybrid model for a while, see how that pans out. I think the music education focus is going to be, out of necessity, a lot more individual. I'm going to try to tailor it as much to each child's needs, or at least make it as flexible as I can, so that each student can take it as much in the direction they want to go in.
Mm-hmm.
My big thing is to keep kids interested, keep them playing, and give them an escape from the virtual environment, even if we're having to teach virtually and use things like smart music and so forth, getting their hands on a real piece of equipment in their hands, making real sounds, maybe even just giving them a place to escape for a while, even if it is for a school assignment. But, go play the sax, go play the drums, sing, whatever you do, but just give you a chance to kind of go off by yourself and get away from the computer for a bit. I don't know about extracurricular things like that, like footballs and marching bands and basketball and that kind of thing. That's anybody's guess.
It's a mess right now.
There's so much to consider for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I've said so many times to my colleagues, all the stuff we used to do on autopilot, all the things we just did as a matter of course. This is what you do when you teach whatever it is you teach. None of it works anymore. I've had to check with my principal on the most basic aspects of being a band director lately to see, have they addressed that in policy? What do you think about this decision, that decision? It's like being a first-year teacher all over again. Everything has to be cleared before you do anything that you always knew to do. So I'm hoping we can keep the kids interested and give them something different, at least in the area of arts education, that's different from the core classes. I don't want to turn into a copycat of everything else. There needs to be something different when they log into the band class. And hopefully it's something that I am really, really hopeful that when we really get a handle on the virtual environment, it might open up new possibilities, new ways of working with the kids. And some of it I think is going to stick around whenever things chill out a bit. I don't think this is going back to the way things were before the shutdown happened. I think we're still going to have a lot of aspects of online education still with us.
Do you think music education is going to take a hit?
I think it's already taken a hit.
Yeah.
um, and just talking to other people, I see a lot of chatter on the Facebook forums that numbers are down. Some of their good players are dropping out. They just don't see the point in sticking with it and all. Now, just for where I teach, most of our numbers are actually up a little bit. I think in our case, I'm guessing, but I think in our case, the kids really enjoy what they do, and we try to keep it a very, very enjoyable program. And I think they enjoy it, and they have missed it, and they are ready to get back to it in whatever form it may take. And I'm hoping we can be worthy of that investment of their time, and find ways to continue to make it fun and interesting. And music ed may take a bit of a hit for a little while, but I really believe teachers in general are some of the most adaptable people on the planet. And once we figure out what the rules of the game are and what kind of environment we're operating in, and really start to figure out the little nuances of it, I think we'll adapt. I don't think music is going to take an irreparable hit. It's going to be like hitting a trampoline. It's going to go down and we're going to shoot right back up. But that's just me.
Most of the time I ask that question, it's pretty much the same answer too. So
I think with most things you have hills and valleys, up and down times. I know just talking to the football coaches, they go through cycles where, their team is just really rocking, and then they're trying to retrain and redevelop their talent. And it's the same with band programs. We have our ups, we have our downs, choir programs. Sometimes you're blessed to really get a system and a culture in place where it really sustains for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. But I think the general rule is you have ups and downs.
Right.
And I think the profession is going to be the same way. We're going to adapt. We're going to figure out how to maximize the potential of this new situation, and then we're going to roll right on. Staying positive.
Yes. You have to. You just have to.
You got to. You got on the silver linings. I think music people in general are pretty good at that.
I think so.
No, you don't get through a music ed program without finding the silver lining in something.
So I know networking is important, but I feel like a lot of my friends and I talk about this every time I have them on, but it's just we were always told to network, but they never always said like the specifics of how to network. So what's your advice for networking?
I would say the same thing about my music ed program, and I think highly of the music ed program at Elon. I just can't say enough good things about what it did for me. But that there's that little chink in the armor there where they tell you need to network, but the specifics of doing it are really kind of left up to you to figure out. I think when it comes down to it, it's all people. It's all people skills. I tried doing a sideline thing with some internet marketing once, and I thought, well, it's stuff on a computer. It's over the internet. I can do this from home in my time when I have some time down from being a band director, like I thought there was going to be time down from being a band director. But anyway, I got into it, and the first thing they said is, okay, we've got to train you. And I said, well, great. And I'm expecting some kind of online programs. And they said, no, we have meetings. You got to be around real people. So I went to these real people meetings for training, and it was all people skills. They said, you might be using a computer, but you got to connect to people. Mm-hmm. And the big thing they said is listen, ask questions, and when people talk, just listen, absorb what they're telling you. We're all guilty at some point of thinking of our reply when somebody's talking about something. We're thinking of the next question we're going to ask, or we're thinking of a reply to what they're saying, and we're guilty of thinking of the next thing we're going to say instead of really hearing what they're speaking. They said just learn to take an interest in people, develop a genuine interest in who they are, and you find out you really start to enjoy people more, and that's where you form those relationships and connections. It may start with a casual handshake or a hello, I've heard your name before, nice to meet you. And then, to kind of break the ice, and then the next time you encounter someone, you can get a little bit deeper into developing that relationship. And I think the same thing online, where we've been on quarantine for so long, developing relationships online, I think is really tough. LinkedIn is something somebody got me into about 7 years ago, trying to develop professional connections on there. And for the longest time, I thought this is useless. uh, I don't see where this is going. And then I realized it was a tool. And it's kind of like a hammer sitting in a toolbox. That hammer does nothing unless you pick it up and do something with it. So I started posting some things online. I started messaging some guys, congratulating them on their work anniversaries, and just starting to build some interactions there. But it's connections and networking are all about relationships. I mean, you don't have to have them over to your house for dinner on a Friday night or anything to develop a relationship, but just acknowledging each other's accomplishments, asking people what they're into nowadays. A lot of what I've been doing lately is interactions on Facebook forums where guys are asking, hey, does anybody know how to do this with your trombone players, or how are you teaching music ed in this situation? Or they're sharing tips, and just doing a little bit of online commenting and messaging back and forth, opening the door to potentially getting to know somebody a little bit better. But I think it's all about people, just striking up a conversation. Well, kind of like you and I are having now. 3 weeks ago, I didn't know you. And and we're getting to hang out and spend some time, even if it's over the cameras now.
Yeah, you're the first guest I have that I never really knew before this. I'm learning how to network through this podcast. So
I think it's kind of fun. I like to meet people. By nature, I tend to be a more introverted personality.
Me too.
So I've had to work at it over the years. I think things can be so fast-paced nowadays, or at least before the shutdown happened, they were. Getting to know somebody and taking a minute to speak to them is tough. Now, I'll tell you where I learned a big lesson was my first teaching job. I was hired in Sparta, North Carolina, as a kindergarten through 8th grade general music and beginning band director, and an assistant at the high school in grades 9 to 12. So I got to, in the course of a day, I got to go through the whole range of the public school population. But the guy I assisted at the high school, his name is Chris Jones, really dynamic, energetic personality. And when they first hired me, Chris had already been on the job, and I was going to assist him with band camp. And we had a day where the kids were not coming to a rehearsal that day. They had a day off from summer marching band. And he said, hey, I need to get some things done today. Why don't you travel with me? I'm going to introduce you to some of the school personnel. So we did. And he had this long list of stuff he wanted to get done. And we went around and talked to the personnel director, the superintendent, school board office personnel, principals, teachers. And all we did all day long was talk to people. And I don't mean just a, hey, how you doing? We'd stop him and we'd be there for an hour. And I thought, man, he's got this long list of stuff he needed to get done, and he's not doing any of it. How does this guy get anywhere as a band director? But my head was all still up in the paperwork and the procedures and checking the boxes off of your task list, And I realized he was forming relationships later on, because when he needed something, he could go right to that personnel director and just say, hey, can you do this thing for me? And the personnel director was like, yeah, let's get that done. But they knew each other. They didn't have to, he didn't have to sell the idea of what he wanted to do. They had already laid so much groundwork between each other. And the same thing worked with him. If they needed something, they could come to him as a band director and say, Mr. Band Director, can you do this thing? And he was like, yeah, we can get that done. And it was all the relationships. It's really all about people. Networking is just getting to know people, spending time, and it's fun.
Do you have any tips for first-year teachers?
Man, ask questions and really listen to the answers. I'm still learning from guys who've been in the profession longer than me. I've gotten to the point now I'm learning from guys who haven't been in the profession as long as me. I'm an old dog learning some new tricks. But that was the thing when I first started, just seeing how guys develop their own hacks for getting through the day efficiently, how to run a rehearsal, how to prep for a rehearsal, even then how to integrate technology into what you're doing, the do's and don'ts. I learned from a lot of really good experienced directors and teachers. When I got at Fort Chiswell, the band and the choir rehearsed in the same room. Now we have different facilities. But there was a great choir director here. Her name was Melanie Rector. And a lot of times when she was teaching her main choir, that was my planning period. So I was in my office in the same room she was teaching choir in. And I just opened that office door and I'd spend my planning period watching her run a rehearsal and seeing how she got the results she got. Just learning from other people. And having the idea that maybe everything I learned in the classroom doesn't necessarily work out in the real world, going from the college classroom to the band room or the school setting. Sometimes things had changed. Guys had found new ways of doing things that were better. And but just getting an idea of how other people doing things. Not saying you have to copy them, but it gives you one more tool to put in your arsenal of how to be successful where you're at. And I think that's the big thing. And get sleep. I'm a fine one to talk. I don't get enough of it. But I remember just wearing myself out those first few years. You know, I was young and thought I could last forever. And you got to pace yourself. You got to have an outlet. When I was more able to do it, I played a lot of volleyball on the weekends. So it was just a good physical release from the tension of the week. I don't know anything that requires a lot of running and jumping anymore if I can avoid it, but back then it was good.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon, so that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, if you can find a video game where you can blow stuff up or whatever, you know. I'm a big fan of gunshots and explosions, at least in the movie world, in the video game world, not real ones, but you know, watching a movie where they blow a bunch of stuff up, or playing a video game where you just get to have at it and wreak some havoc, you know, is an amazing stress reliever.
Animal Crossing, though, on the flip side, it's like you're like planting trees and just going out and fishing. So that's fun too, though.
Maybe I need to have my pastimes reevaluated.
Animal Crossing. I recommend Animal Crossing to
Animal
anybody.
Crossing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Hang up the guns, plant a tree. There we go.
Yes, it's great. Nice, relaxing music.
Cool.
Final question from me. What is teaching community band versus high school, middle school band like?
Oh, man. You know, it's different and it's the same all at the same time. For me, I had to prepare a lot more. The community band's got former professional players, current music educators, guys that could play their socks off and run circles around me. And then it's also got folks who picked up the instrument after having been in high school band, and then they picked it up after 20 or 30 years and dusted off the case, and they're just getting back into it. So it's got an even more diverse range of players. So trying to figure out how does a guy like me teach professional players and teach guys who are still, working out the ins and outs of the instrument was a big deal. I think for me, I finally figured out it's not about teaching there. That's not what that setting is. It's about letting people come together and make music together. That's why those guys are there. We actually get to offer community band through Wytheville Community College. You can take it as a class if you want to. You don't have to. You can just come play. But getting out of the teacher frame of mind and getting more into a music making mode was different for me. The pros want to come and play. They just enjoy playing. The amateurs want to come and play. They all just want to come play music and enjoy making music for music's sake, which was so very cool. So I ended up, instead of picking music for educational value, I picked it up more to, and picked the programs thinking about it from the perspective of the player. Do I want to be here once a week for 2 hours playing this? would I want to play it if I was sitting in the chair? And I came out of the community band, so I know how it feels when you're playing something, you love it. And I know how it feels when you're just getting through this song to get to the next one. So I try to pick a diverse program so that there's going to be something there that the players all enjoy. But then I also want to pick something that the audience is going to enjoy too, because I think as musicians, we really get pumped up when the audience is into what we're doing. And if the audience enjoys it and you enjoy what you're playing, that's just that perfect partnership. And I think it's been working. I've enjoyed that a lot. We laugh in rehearsals. And sometimes you can't do that as much in a public school setting. Sometimes the environment gets a little out of control there with teenagers and middle schoolers. But, we try to have fun. And it's nice to be able to just joke with people your own age and younger and older and see, there might be a high school player in the community band sitting beside a retiree and they're both laughing together. And that kind of thing is cool. So I think relationships always happen in a band setting. But I think with the community band, it's even more the focus. Just feeling good about playing. So that's been a really neat experience. And I've had to realize it's not so much about rehearsing the dog out of a passage and getting all the missed notes out of it and making sure it's contest ready. We're playing for community audiences, and we want to have a good time. They want to have a good time. And yeah, we are probably not going to rehearse a piece to perfection, but we're going to have a good time rehearsing it to the point it arrives at. And they're great folks, man. I miss them. Just super people. Man, I tell you, it's community band stuff for me as a director was interesting, as I would go to a community band rehearsal maybe 60 to 90 minutes after I just finished marching band at my own school. And when I first started, we eventually ended up holding rehearsals here at my school, but I'd have to drive to the next town when I first started and run a rehearsal after a full day of teaching already. And then I've got another 2-hour rehearsal coming up. But after the community band rehearsals were done, I was full of more energy than when I got there. And those are very cool things when the folks in the band energize you as a director. That's neat. Just really neat. I'm hoping to get back to that one day.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Sooner the better, but it has to be the right way. It's kind of interesting. We got a lot of teachers in the community band down here. One of them drives all the way from North Carolina back to her house in Virginia, and then comes on to community band rehearsal, and then goes back home and goes to goes to teach the next morning. I bet you she's on the road. Man, it's gotta be maybe 2 to 3 hours on community band days, I bet. I may be reaching a little too far from that, but yeah. Some of them will come, they'll drive an hour and a half, I know, to get here. They'll drive to Wytheville County from Roanoke. We had guys come from West Virginia before, North Carolina. That's something else I think about. If they're going to drive that long, that rehearsal ought to be doggone worth it. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
They need to come away from that feeling like it was worth their time to do it. And because that's not easy. Yeah, that is not easy at all. You put everything you've got into a teaching day, and to come and do another rehearsal and then go back and do it again the next day, that takes some oomph to you, and maybe some coffee, maybe lots of coffee.
Have to. That's insane.
I only drink 1 cup a day, but it's like, massive. It's a really big cup.
I'm at 2, but I didn't drink it at all until I started teaching. So
yep.
It's how it is, I guess.
I didn't drink coffee until I was in my 40s. Yeah, I stayed away from it. And where I went wrong, I went home one night from a band camp rehearsal. We've been at band camp 12 and a half hours that day. And I stopped at a McDonald's, and for some reason they had this little, electronic menu board. And it put a little image up there of a caramel frappe.
Those are good.
And I thought, man, that looks good for some reason. I'm not a coffee drinker. I know it's a coffee-related drink. It's not real coffee. So I thought, I'm going to try it. And I tried it. And after a 12-and-a-half-hour day, I was up till 3 a.m. I was just wired. That sugar had me just pumped. So I got up the next morning and I thought, well, if that drink kept me up that much last night, might as well start the day with it. So I got another one.
Yeah.
And from there, we progressed to coffee.
I started with McDonald's too.
No kidding.
I still love their sugar-free iced coffee. Like,
yeah, tried a few of those this summer.
yeah. Yep, that's how I started coffee. So
yeah, there's nothing like a good cup of coffee.
There's not.
Not at all. Of course, I have had a few cups that were nothing like a good cup of coffee. They were rough.
I don't like the kind that, they have out, which they don't anymore because of COVID, but in like the car dealerships, they'll have like a coffee pot there with like cheap like sweetener, creamer, or whatever. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's no good.
Those aren't good.
No. I'm actually not a fan of the gourmet coffee stuff that you order out. I like to do it at the house. I like right out of my own coffee pot as much as I can.
Yeah, it's cheaper too.
Yep. And I'm all about cheaper.
Yes. Well, I'm finished with my outline. Do you have anything to add?
Oh, boy. I can't really think of anything. I guess since the whole shutdown happened, I've just tried to keep an open mind about kind of rolling with the punches on stuff. It's a whole different environment, and I try not to get stuck on what you can't control. I'd rather look at the stuff that you can. So I've not been a fan of online technology, but here we are embracing the online technology now. And all the new trainings and things. And I'm really hoping when this is all said and done, I come out of it being a better teacher. I think we all will. As most of us have had to put ourselves back in the chair of being a student again in some shape, form, or fashion, reevaluating how we do what we do, why we do what we do. I really prefer to believe that when it's all done, the positives are going to outweigh the negatives for education.
Yeah.
For music, for arts, for all of it. So I think that's where I stand on it all right now. Now, don't ask me tomorrow morning when I'm taking more training. Don't ask me then. But right now, that's where I'm at.
I hear that. All righty. I'm going to stop this recording.
That sounds great. Thanks, Sarah. It's been fun.
And that is all for today's episode. Again, thank you, Frank, for being on. It was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like and share this podcast and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. My name is Sarah, and this has been Teach Talk with the Fine Arts.